Hey guys, welcome to week 7 of the run-up to 8th edition. This is going to be my final update on this run-up. A couple of reasons for that. One, I'm actually going to be away next week and enjoying a break from YouTube. And secondly, with all the Warhammer TV coverage that's going on at the moment, and the fact that all your Games Workshop stores and local friendly gaming stores have all got all the indexes and all the rules already, it's quite easy to get hold of more detail and all the rest of it, and people are now playing 8th edition games. And on top of that, obviously, if you really wanted to Google all the leaks, you can get those from the comfort of your own home. So what I'm going to focus on is the Imperial Agents, the sneak peek of the Imperial Armour from Forge World that we got, the Harlequins faction focus, and the dreaded and slightly beardy Ynnari faction that came along in the final parts of 7th edition. So let's kick straight off then with the faction focus on the Imperial Agents. Now this is going to include Assassins, Sisters of Battle and Inquisitors, or the Inquisition shall I say. So we've got a little bit of information on these guys as well, which is a good start. So we'll crack straight into the Assassins. Now I've been a big fan of those. They make great reading in some of the books and some of the background. So it's good to see some of these guys coming to the tabletop a little bit more useful. So we've got some information on the Vindicare and the Eversor. In fact, we've got a full data slate for the Eversor himself. So let's have a quick look at what's really useful on here. The Eversor has always been overlooked, I think, in 7th and previous editions, in favour pretty much of either the Calexus or the Vindicare in my experience. But the Eversor is a close combat beast now, with this ability to be pretty much placed and charged almost at a whim, with this 3d6 charge roll. Rather than 2d6, adding 2 to his attacks when he charges. He's got a great weapon skill, great ballistic skill. His executioner pistol is pretty tasty, and then he explodes when he gets finally killed on the battlefield. But not just any kind of death. On a 4-up, it's D3 mortal wounds. Now I've been watching some Warhammer TV of stuff exploding, and enemy units that are taking this D3 mortal wounds from vehicles exploding or whatever is turning into a really lethal tactic of charging, really quite low wounded vehicles into the affray and then exploding and causing these D3 mortal wounds. It's pretty lethal. The Vindicare weapon is pretty tasty. Ignoring cover and invulnerable saves is going to be quite useful in 8th edition. AP-3 is always a 2+ to wound infantry, and he's causing D3 damage or D6 on a 6 to wound. That's going to be ripping some wounds off some characters quite nicely. But that's the background of the Vindicare Assassin, right? One of the big changes for me is Inquisitor Cotiaz. He's been used and abused, I think, enough now with his ability to command units to shoot and intercept stuff that's deep striking or coming in from reserves. And that rule used to transpire across pretty much any unit within your army. So you often saw Cotiaz appear in all kinds of weird combinations just to abuse that power. And I think he had a couple of re-rolls on some other bits like going first and some other stuff. I never used him. But yeah, he was abused over the last edition, I think. So the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas, then they've got this really cool Act of Faith stuff. Looks like it's a lot more reliable and giving some really good buffs across the army. Invulnerable saves copying around there. Lots of Act of Faith abilities, depending on Celestine and Imagifiers. Giving extra moves, shooting and melee phases, or even the ability to regen wounds as well. So careful use of those, and I think combining that with some command points, with those re-rolls that you can get, should prove pretty good for the fans of the Sisters of Battle. Celestine herself, she gets to boost invulnerable saves to nearby units, so that can give them a 5+. Very tasty indeed. Re-rolls to invulnerable saves with the Seraphim squads again. 5+ re-rollable, going to be pretty good. Going to cause lots of synergy questions. And then you can see Celestine herself is an utter beast. 7 wounds, 6 attacks, pretty much 2s all round, big movement, and with her bodyguards as well looking quite useful. Very good choices for the sisters there. Finally, we had some updates on the Immolator and the Penitent engine. Always found that the Penitent was never used. It seemed a bit of a clunky vehicle before, but double heavy flamers with that Overwatch ability now. Lots of attacks at strength 10, causing 3 damage. extra abilities. When piling in, they get an extra attack or an extra round of attacks on a 4-up. The Immolator again, also pretty tasty. That Immolation Flamer, 2d6 auto hits at strength 5. Yeah, overwatching with that, yeah, be aware. That's going to be causing lots of problems. So Forge World gave us a little taster of what's coming up in their Imperial Armour indexes as well. One of the big things for me is the Spartan Land Raider. One of my main stables in my Imperial Fists army. Is a quick reminder, there she is, the beauty herself, with all those quad las cannons, twin-linked heavy bolters. Always run with Ceramite armour to stop those melter guns popping her. But yeah, under the new data slate, that power level 23 is going to give you an indication there that the Spartan assault tank is now completely mental. So its main armament then are the quad las cannons, so we now know that twin linking isn't a thing, so these are basically now heavy 4, so that's 8 las cannon shots with the 6 heavy bolter shots as well, and the laser destroyer option as well is looking immense. One of the fun things about this is the crushing track rules. You can see in the sheet there, it's got a bunch of attacks that are basically on a 5+ is going to hit you like a las cannon to the face. That's all I can say there. It's bucket of attacks charging into you. It's going to be great fun to see that charging as well. But for me, it's always been a fire support unit. I've taken down flyers and all kinds of weird things with this in the past, even snap firing, but you know, twin linked and snap firing was pretty good. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing my Spartan hit the tabletop again. Not to be outdone though, the Forces of Chaos have also had a little preview of one of their vehicles as well. It's the Greater Brass Scorpion. Now this is a combat monster. Look at that, 20 wounds, hitting on 3s. Just looking at those weapon stats, there's lots of minuses on the AP column, which is great. Invulnerable saves, it can regen wounds. It's don't want to be anywhere near one of these in combat. This is going to be something you're going to be wanting to shoot big time from as far away as possible. If it gets into your lines, yeah, be somewhere else. I mean, but it's going to be hard to ignore. It's got a movement of 12, and then you add on to the charges and the advances and everything else that's coming along. Yeah, be afraid of this killer beast. But at 32 power, are you going to see that many of them? Big question. I assume the points are going to be equally high in order to field it. But it's good to see, in theory at least, that Forge World is more balanced and more aligned with 40k going forward. Now our next faction focuses on the enigmatic Harlequins. Always a very pretty army to look at, always have been known to be a glass hammer. Hit like a steam train, but don't like it back at them. Always very pretty, lots of diamonds, and always admire the paint jobs of anyone who's got the patience to paint Harlequins. I've done a unit of 10 myself, never again is what I swore. But we've got some good rules on those. We know flip belts are going to ignore terrain and other models, which is going to be pretty useful to get them into combat. The rising crescendo allows them to advance and charge, or charge and or shoot after falling back, and they've got a good movement of 8, so these are going to be very nimble getting around the battlefield. The Shadow Seer is going to give lots of buffs to its unit as well. Already comes with 5 wounds himself, and then on top of that the Hollow Suits are going to get an invulnerable save, so they're going to be hopefully not too glass hammerish as before, but highly mobile and hitting as hard as possible. Now we can see here the troop data slate. We can see that their basic save is 6 up, so they're going to be relying on those 4+ invulnerables pretty much all the time. But they've got lots of pistol options, and the Harlequins' Caress, Embrace, and Kiss have always been their mainstay weapons, what they're famous for. And then you get choices of whether you're going to go, Kiss or Caress. What are you going to do? One's going to cause more wounds but at less strength, whereas one's going to cause a better strength with better AP but only causing limited number of wounds. So yeah, it's going to be good to see. I'd like to see more Harlequins on the table, even if they're just sort of bolted onto an Elder or a Dark Elder force. I think they're very, very thematic. I think they're very pretty when they're painted well, but they are an utter bitch to paint, which I think is one of the big reasons that puts a lot of people off using them. And one of the Harlequin's killer characters is, of course, the Solitaire. Has a 12-inch move, has 8 attacks with a 3-up invulnerable save. Now you try and shift that thing off the board. As I said, it's got the Harlequin's Caress, which is the higher strength, but only causing 1 damage, or the Kiss, which is going to give more damage at a lower strength. Now this Blitz feature is going to be a character killer. Not only with that 12-inch move, but with a 2d6 extra move and plus 2 attacks once per game. Going to be flanking around and taking out some of these characters that are buffing other units. And on top of that, we've also seen the Starweaver as well, which is a low toughness but highly flexible vehicle. It's got an invulnerable save, it's got the fly keyword, and also this ability to stop people shooting at it, or at least reducing the impact and the ability to shoot at it. Finally then, we have the faction focus on the Ynnari. Now this faction did kind of pass me by, to be honest. I mean, I do own the book that it comes in. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I do know from experience or from reading about it that they were utterly broken. So just to remind you and myself of really what they are, they're kind of a splinter faction of the Eldari, or the Eldar. And you basically sort of make detachments from Eldar and Dark Eldar with a few exceptions, and then that unit gained the Ynnari keyword. Now they got to lose things like Doom and Battle Focus and all the mainstay abilities that came with the Eldar, but they gained this Strength from Death ability. Games Workshop gave us a quick example of how to sort of make an army, well, by just randomly appointing units to the Ynnari faction, so some Fire Dragons, some Incubi, and some Harlequins. And then they gained this Ynnari faction keyword, which gained them Strength from Death. And Games Workshop very kindly have given us the new version of Strength from Death. Basically, it gives you a free action if some unit that's nearby dies. Now this is now limited to Ynnari infantry and biker units. In the previous version, it was everything except vehicles, so it included Wraith Knights, Wraith Lords, and everything else that was pretty mean. And the long and the short of it is that basically the Ynnari faction were getting 2 turns for every one of the opponents, and that became a big meta in the tournament scene, where, you know, if a unit happens to die, which you could, you know, kind of manipulate on the battlefield, you then got to use one of your super powerful units again and again and again. So you were getting, multiple turns compared to the... And that was definitely one of the big reasons why Eldar were top tier in 7th edition competitive play. I'm glad to see this has got toned down. We'll see how much manipulation there's still available for it when we come to sort of analyse these rules a little bit later on. But for now, hopefully it should be a little bit more usable and a little bit more friendly. So just almost like a recap then, as I said, Strength from Death has kind of been a bit more exclusive now. It's a little bit more toned down, which is great. But yeah, you still get this soul burst action within 7 inches, but only for infantry and bikers rather than everything else. But you can combine that with some sneaky psychic powers like Word of the Phoenix. That's going to give you a free soul burst action, providing you haven't used an action before. And as I said, this gives you basically a free little bit of movement, advance, fallbacking. If you're a Psyker being affected by this, a free Psychic round, shooting or charging. But I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pull off compared to 7th edition. Now there has been quite a lot of activity on Warhammer TV. There's been lots of interviews with sculptors and painters and designers, which I highly recommend you go and watch. They've been really entertaining to see. You know, the likes of Jervis and so on have been on there discussing some of the concepts behind 8th edition. Really good to watch. If you're a subscriber to Warhammer TV, highly recommend going and watching some of the battle reports. The guys at that team are doing a fantastic job. I'm not a subscriber myself yet, but I've been catching a few live shows. Been really good. So that's going to wrap up the road to 8th for me. As I said, I'm not going to be around next week. In the meantime though, as you may have caught my last video, I have hit 100 subscribers. There is a giveaway floating around. So check my last video if you want to enter that. It would be much appreciated. Win some stuff. That would be cool for you guys. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed this final video of the Road to 8th edition, and of course all my other week 1 through week 7 and actual hobby content as well. So I hope you are enjoying the videos. Hope you've enjoyed this run up to 8th and my thoughts and opinions on it. It's been good fun to make. And the next video, by the time I'm ready for the next video, 8th edition will be live. We will be playing 8th across the globe. I'll have all the rules, myself, all the models and stuff, so expect to see some good hobby content. Well, I call it good, it's up to you, it's subjective. But definitely some hobby content. with regard to the launch of 8th. So in the meantime, enjoy the launch next weekend, and I shall catch you on the next video.